Ladies and gentlemen, please let me welcome you at our closing Templeton Project Conference with the title Faith and Beliefs of Nonbelievers. We are in the Czech Republic, so we have to start with a joke. All our friends from Hungary, Poland and other countries will understand. It's a little bit provocative joke, but Tomáš Halík will not like it. Actually. There is a man sitting on a bench in the park, and there is a boy coming with the box. And the man asking the boy, "What do you have in the box?" And he opens the box, and there are a lot of small kittens. And he said, "Wow, such a nice kitten." I say, "Yeah, they are Christian kittens." Wow, it's great. He's the traditional Christian, so he was very pleased. In a week, he's coming again to the same bar, sitting on the bench, next to him a lady, and to the opposite bench is coming the very same boy, again with the box. And he knows already, so he whispers to the ear of the lady, "Go and ask the boy what does he have in the box." And she comes to him, and, "What do you have in the box?" He opens the box, kitten. And she says, "Wow, such a fantastic kitten." "Yes, they are atheists." And the man jumps out of the bench and asks the boy, whoa, wait a minute. Last week you said they are Christians." "Yes, but now they have opened their eyes." So with this, please welcome again to our conference about the faith and beliefs of non-believers, and I would like to pass the floor to Professor Tomáš Halík, the father of this project and the person who actually designed the main roads and path of the whole ground.
So, I will not try to open your eyes. Good morning, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. This conference concludes the international project Faith and Belief of Non-Believers, which we started at the end of 2019. The coronavirus pandemic has interfered with our work on this project, and essential part of which has been to hold international colloquia in Prague. So the coronavirus affected the length and style of our work. We had to switch partly to online lectures. However, as a result, we were able to put on our website a series of lectures by distinguished experts from several countries, Grace Davy, Charles Taylor, and many others. We held 8 closed international colloquia, 6 public lectures, several working sessions, and 1 university course. We published a volume of expert studies and several case studies. We have filmed interviews with young people on YouTube. We contacted the researcher of a thematically similar project dealing with non-belief in other parts of the world and compared our results. One of the products is my book, Afternoon of Christianity, which has been translated into several languages. One of the questions we raised during the project, how can believers and non-believers cooperate to overcome the misuse of religion? So this question prompted us to start a new follow-up project, the misuse of religion and building resilience. This topic proved to be very urgent in the context of Russian aggression in Ukraine and the alliance between state and Orthodox Church in today's Russia. The negative image of the West as morally corrupted society inherited from the Soviet communist propaganda has become the main ideological weapon of Putin's hybrid war, preparing the hot war, which began with the aggression against Ukraine. This ideology is blessed and baptized by the Russian Orthodox Church, whose patriarch Kirill is Vladimir Putin's former colleague from KGB. Today, populist, nationalist, political extremists, and religious fundamentalists are on the rise in Eastern and Western Europe, and also in the United States. It is clearly documented that the intense propaganda war against the European Union and NATO is financed by Russia. Russian propaganda especially targets conservative Catholics and conservative Christians who have always had an affinity for authoritarian regimes. The opposition on far-right Christians to liberal democracy and the sympathy for today's Russia is reminiscent of the sympathy of far-right Christians for fascism in Serbia and Portugal. It is very important to explore the reasons why a certain type of religiosity is so receptive to populism and political extremism, and is used and abused as its tool. It seems that a secular culture has underestimated the power of religion, power of religious symbols and rhetorics, which can be used in a variety of ways. Secular language is often unable to express strong emotions in personal and public life, and people then spontaneously turn to religious language, but it is not innocent and neutral. Political subjects can be sacralized or demonized through religious language. The emotional power of religious language can be used to heal and to reconcile, but also to unleash anger and hatred. Attempts to banish religion from public square are naive. It is not the solution. It can lead to repressed religiosity returning in new forms. And also atheism or secularism itself can become an intolerant pseudo-religion. What is needed, therefore, is above all a better understanding of the complex phenomena of religion and its historical and cultural transformations. This inspired us to undertake another project, Reading the Signs of the Times. It explores the methodological aspects of cooperation between sociologists and theologians in interdisciplinary interpretation of ongoing changes in culture and society. Our research projects fulfill, among other things, the impulses expressed by in Pope Francis's document Theologiam Promovendam on the future task of theology and necessity of interdisciplinary approach, especially public theology, which deals with social issues and enters into the public space itself, into discussions about the character of our civilization and the challenges of our time, can play an important role in the process of the synodal reformation of the Church launched by Pope Francis. In Pope Francis's vision of the Church as a common way synodos, if it will be fulfilled, it may also mean a fundamental change in what we deal with the relationship, what we deal with in the relationship between faith and unbelief. The Second Vatican Council attempted to change the relationship between the Church and society, to move away from a strategy of defense against the modern world, modern culture, philosophy, and science. In Gaudium et Spes, it offered the modern secular world, even the world of non-believers, an attitude of dialogue and partnership. However, this offer seems to have come too late and has not met with reciprocity. Modern man was no longer interested in such a partnership. The attempt of reconciliation with modernity came at a time when the age of modernity was just ending. The cultural revolution of the late 1960s marked another step in the process of secularization and changed the position of churches in Europe. The Council did not prepare the Church for that radically pluralistic world of postmodern culture, then has gradually come to dominate our civilization in the last quarter of the 20th century. We live in a time of paradigm change in our civilization, as well as in religious life, the church and theology. When new facts, knowledge, and experiences accumulate, we must change the paradigm and the framework through which we see and interpret the reality of our world. Let's remember Thomas Kuhn's The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. This is true not only for the natural sciences, but also for the social sciences, philosophy, and theology. The location of our meetings, consultations, and seminars was Prague, Czech Republic, which is generally considered to be one of the most atheistic countries in Europe or in the world. It is indeed a high number of nuns, people who don't identify or just partly identify with organized religion, religious institutions, teachings, and praxis. On closer examination, we can see two things. First, the number of nuns is growing in many other countries as well. Czech Republic is no more an exception. Second, it is not correct to regard nuns blatantly as non-believers or even convinced atheists. The amount of nuns is very colorful and deserves further exploration. It includes not only atheists or various kinds, but also agnostics, atheists, people indifferent to religion, people disappointed with their churches, then spiritual seekers, followers of alternative spiritualities, etc. The claim that believers are in decline is inaccurate and based on a certain limited understanding of faith believers. There are fewer believers of a certain type. The number of believers fully identified with the teachings and practices of the traditional churches is diminishing. On the other hand, the number of pure or dogmatic atheists is diminishing too. There is a great diversity among those who claim to be believers, and there is great diversity among those who claim to be unbelievers as well. One form of secularization is the exculturation of religion, particularly in countries where religion has been suppressed and eliminated from public sphere, and where religious education is still lacking, and people encounter religion mainly through negative media reports about churches, as in the case of the Czech Republic. We will encounter a high number of people who will quickly and easily declare themselves atheists. In Czech lands and in East Germany, one can encounter the statement, I am, of course, an atheist, meaning simply, I'm normal. I'm like everyone else. I do not belong to any obscure minority. Many who call themselves atheists often reject their own images of religion, taken from public opinion, often from the mass media. The statement, I am a believer, or I am an atheist, usually reflects more on the authority and position of religion in a given society. People tend to identify with a position that is more acceptable to their environment. Many people who identify themselves as atheists do not reject the absolute mystery the believers call God, but rather theism, various human speculations and theories about God, and of course, different forms of religious institutions. Where there is a shift among believers from a dogmatic religiosity to an understanding of faith as a spiritual journey, and among non-believers or nuns shift from dogmatic atheism to spiritual seeking, the boundary between the two groups begins to weaken. These trends challenge the relevance of dividing people into believers and non-believers. Moreover, research shows us that value orientation among people who identify as believers and non-believers are surprisingly similar. They have the great value on the family, freedom, and so on. And there is another remarkable phenomenon, which puts the categories believer and non-believer into question. Many people today are simul fidelis et infidelis, believers and non-believers simultaneously. The border between belief and unbelief has ceased to be a line of distinction between groups of people, and it's crossed even in individual spiritual and intellectual lives. Already the psychologist Hjalmar Sundén pointed out the ability of people to interpret the same event religiously and non-religiously, and maintain a readiness for both interpretations. I believe this ability is strongly developed by our present pluralistic civilization. European society, in which Christianity has lived for more than 2 centuries in context and symbiosis with secular humanism, makes most of its members culturally bilingual, and subculturally believing Christians still breathe the air of secularity, and secular people have many Christian genes in their cultural DNA. Sociologists of religion write about the typically postmodern syncretism, multiple religious affiliations, combinations of Judaism and Buddhism, or Christianity with yoga. But Christianity, the religion of incarnation, has always been syncretic in a way. It has always been incarnated in a particular culture. Christianity was born in the context of Judaism, and it's impossible to completely separate it from the heritage. So some from Marcion to Deutsche Christen have tried to do so. Modern European culture consists of certain syncretism between Christianity and secularity, secular humanism. Today it is almost impossible to separate Christianity from its partly unwanted child, Enlightenment humanism. So some fundamentalists have tried to do so. What Christianity would look like if it wanted to free itself from the legacy of the Enlightenment into the secularism can be seen in contemporary in Christian fundamentalism and traditionalism. Many advocates of Christian Europe, or Christian values, driven by nostalgia for medieval Christianitas, seen through the eyes of the 19th century Romanticism, are turning the Christian faith into a political ideology and use it as an instrument of previously lost culture wars. Secondly, unfortunate, as Christian fundamentalism, however, is the opposite extreme, Christianophobia, radical and intolerant secularism. Atheism can also become a religion, even an intolerant state religion, as was the case, for example, with Marx-Leninism in our countries. It is in the interest of Christians and Christianity and Christians to promote the secular character of the secular component of European culture, and has to reject the temptation of secularism to become religion. Sometimes a secularization of secularism is needed. In one of my books, I wrote that faith and thought are like two sisters who need each other, supporting each other on a narrow gangplank so they do not collapse into either fundamentalism or cynicism. Faith without rationality and critical thinking can lead to fundamentalism, bigotry, and fanaticism. Doubt that is incapable of self-doubt and rationality that does not know its limits, as Pascal already put, can be similarly one-sided and dangerous. Critical and self-critical atheism can build on the biblical critical idolatry and thus be a useful servant of faith and theology. Antitheologia, atheismus as antitheologia. And all theological tradition growing out of mystical experience, apophatic or negative theology, has been well aware of this for centuries. Contemporary postmodern theology builds on it, including the vision of major faith in my book, Atheism of Christianity. In light of faith transformations, it is necessary to reassess many traditional categories of the sociology and psychology of religion. The categories of belief and unbelief, of believers and non-believers, as understood by previous generations, are no longer able to encompass and reflect the diversity and dynamism of a spiritual life of our time. The wars between believers and non-believers and between faith and skepticism have fallen in common with some seemingly unshakable walls on the political and cultural scene. We must discard many underly static categories to understand our multi-phased and rapidly changing world. The individual and society's spiritual life is a dynamic energy field, constantly evolving. Our reflections of the faith of unbelievers and the unbelief of believers, confusing faith with ideology, led me to consider the future of Christianity in our civilization. European Christianity has long since ceased to be a religio, or religion in the sense of religare, to reunite, to be an integrating force for the whole of society, but perhaps it can be a religion in the sense of relegere, to read again, to offer a relative, a new hermeneutic, a new and deeper understanding of both its own sources, scripture tradition, and the sign of the times. The pre-modern Christianitas is long over, and the modern form of Christianity, as the closed Catholicism or Protestantism, is following it into the past. I'm hopeful that after long midday crisis, Christianity can enter the afternoon of its history, a more mature, adult form. I'm convinced that the future of Christianity depends on its ability to respond, on the one hand, to desire for spiritual depth, and on the other hand, the desire for justice, freedom, and solidarity. Thank you.